Hello and welcome to Ashes Rugby League Podcast, episode 22. My name's Lee Addison.
My name is John Davidson.
On the day that I've just learned that Che Guevara was a rugby union player and a doctor, myself and John are going to probe the state of English Rugby League in this podcast alongside Anthony Broxton, or should I call you Anthony Brixton, as I did last week?
I like Anthony Broxton, sort of like writer's name, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be a pseudonym on a Friday night when you.
Yeah, exactly. How are you? You good?
I'm all right. I'm still here. For those who are watching on YouTube, Anthony is sporting a 1992 Umbro Great Britain Rugby League tracksuit, no doubt pining for the relative halcyon days of when Great Britain could win one game and score. Well, they scored more tries in one game than England have in this series, haven't they?
Yes.
And there's a man here called Chris, because it's Bring Your Dad to Work Day. Chris Adasko, fresh from going to the Etihad today to try and make life better after England lost yesterday.
Hello. Yes, I've cheered up slightly since yesterday, but it's only been 50 years of melancholy. So, yeah.
Well, don't forget, we're City fans, Dad, so we know all about it. Okay, we're getting to the last week of pods, John, so we've got quite a big week coming up, and I'm going to put out a few analysis videos and whatnot. So before we go any further, boys, when are we going to do the preview this week? Let's just put our diary out there for everyone to hear. Think
might be Thursday night UK time.
Thursday night, so yeah. Friday morning, Oz. Can you do that, AB?
I think I could do Thursday. Yeah.
All right, and I'll call you Chris in this pod. You're on probation today. Let's see how you go, and then you might get a second invite. I'll also
he could be the Morgan Smithies of the podcast.
Yeah, he's a little bit on the nose, isn't he? For some reason, this is one of 4 podcasts then that I'll be involved with this week. So the Rugby League Coach Podcast for this week is already out on any podcast provider. And also I'll be on the Loose Carry podcast from Zero Tackle. These guys here, just part-timers. Before we go any further, I'm going to play the audio that our intrepid journalist John Davidson did. Where did you get these from, John?
It's called Interviewing Players in the Mix Zone.
Okay. And what happens for those who don't know, us mere mortals who have to read your content?
Well, generally, as you would no doubt guess, there's a press conference after the game involving the coaches of each team, sometimes involving the captains as well. And then there is a mix zone where the players leave the dressing rooms and go back to their team buses. And people might, like me, try and pester them with questions and ask them things. Yeah.
Can players avoid the mix zone?
Oh yeah. There was a couple England players who conveniently kind of sandwiched straight into the corporate area. I can remember the 22 World Cup when Samoa beat England and all the players dodged the mix zone except for, if my memory serves me correct, Mike Cooper and I think it might have been George Williams.
Not like Wayne Bennett going out the back door at the airport.
Yes.
Do any players walk past you in the mix zone and just ignore you?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, generally the losing side, that's more likely to happen. But
no, it's I have to say against you, John.
No. Luckily not. I'd have to say that the NRL players are quite well schooled, I think, in knowing the value of media. So. They will come, and I'm sure Adokar did a number of interviews, particularly with TV, before he stopped with me and a few others, and they're all really good. To be fair, with their time and putting up with stupid questions from the likes of me.
We'll go through those interviews now, and I will put the English ones first. So you'll hear from George Williams, then you'll hear from Callum Watkins, then the Aussies Hudson Young and Josh Adokar.
I bet, yeah.
That tells you everything,
Yeah, disappointing, really disappointing. I think we showed good account of ourselves first half, but the second half was probably similar to the week before. Just started slow and then They scored 2 tries on us, and that's the game. So at this level, you get stung if you a little bit off, and that's what happened. Proud of the performance, but still not quite good enough.
You really took it to Australia, and they struggled, didn't it, to adapt, particularly first half.
Yeah, well, the series was on the line. We was giving it our best shot. I think you saw a plan from us first half to kick in corners and try and make it a bit uncomfortable for Australia. Second half, we made 2 errors in our own end, and they punished us.
When you have so much possession and it's first half played deep in their half and you don't score a try, do you start to worry that you're not going to crack it?
The game changes once they score 2 early on in the second half, so then you're chasing your tail. So then our attack got a little bit frantic with chasing the game. So credit to Australia, they defended us really well. We didn't really break them down much, so that's something we've got to work on.
George, do you look back on that 10 minutes when Walsh was in the bin with some frustrations? Some things you could have done better there, do you think?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I think we got our plan right as in kicking into corners and defending well, but we probably lacked a little bit of quality and a bit of detail in the good ball sets.
It'll be talked of as a dead rubber in some parts of the media next week, but have you guys got to go out and put a show on next week and make sure it isn't 3-0?
Yeah, we're going to try and get some pride back. Obviously, we don't want to be embarrassed 3-0. We spoke a lot about this series. We've improved so much. So yeah, hopefully we can get one on the board.
What aspects do you think you can be more clinically?
Yeah, good ball. I think obviously, like I said, you've got to give some credit to Australia. They scrambled really well, saved 3 or 4 tries. So yeah, that's probably one to work on for us.
You probably put I think it's your birthday yesterday, wasn't it? You probably put that on.
Say again, sorry.
Was it your birthday yesterday?
Yeah, birthday getting old. 31.
You put celebrating on how I guess you wanted to do it tonight. How disappointed are you?
Yeah, good. Obviously, we came here to save the series, and we've not done that. So a lot of lads deflated in there. We've put a lot of time, effort, and as you've seen, we give it our all there, but not quite good enough.
Back with Harry, how did it change how you played? The change in the back combination?
Yeah, I think we had a good plan as in kicking into corners, and but we probably didn't execute our good ball, so that's something we can definitely work on. But I think there's some promising signs, but when you play a team as good as they are, if you're not quite on with the ball, it shows.
Has there been any sort of discussion as to why Mikey Lewis didn't come on until 10-12 minutes to go?
Well, I don't do the subs, mate. I'm just out there playing, so I'll leave that to Wayne.
How do you pick yourself up? What's the motivation going into next week now?
Yeah, save the embarrassment, a bit of a 3-0 beating. So yeah, a lot riding on it. Obviously, like I said, this has been a massive series, massive event over in this country, so we've got to get some pride back in the jersey.
What'd you make of the stadium, Hill Dickinson?
Brilliant.
Yeah,
really
atmosphere.
Atmosphere was a lot better than last week, obviously. It's difficult with Wembley because obviously it's so big. It was a great occasion, but I think this week you really saw what English crowds are really about.
More of the same at Headingley you'd hope for?
Well, I think, yeah, that's the home of rugby league in this country, I like to think. So, yeah, we'll need 20,000 whatever is in there to be rocking and try and get one on the board.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thanks, George.
Thank you.
Hi, mate. Yeah, good. What did you? I mean, that was tough, but
yeah, it was tough. Just repeated it over there.
Yeah.
It's just about the small details, and when you get them opportunities, you've got to take them, especially against the Aussies. I know that full well, so I really enjoyed it out there. It was a good tussle, good test match, and just disappointed that we didn't get the result.
it seemed like there was echoes of 2017. You know what I mean? Particularly that first half. It was set for said and just throw.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. I think the toughness and playing at the highest level. That's what it's all about. You've got to have a collective, get a group of guys that want to win, and we had that belief definitely. I think we came close a few times, especially in that first half. We could have took a couple of opportunities, but again, that's that little tiny little bit of difference. So yeah, it's felt like a proper test match, that, and I really enjoyed it being part of it.
Are you one of the more experienced players? What do you think the gap is now? Do you think it's what it was before? Is it worse? Is it better? Like, because you played Australia, I'm going to say quite a few times. Yeah.
Well, we came really close.
Yeah.
We came really close, and I felt like today.
Yeah.
Had the same kind of feel with it.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're far off at all. I don't think we are. And the big thing, we probably had a lot of motivation on top of that because no one thought we'd be close.
Yeah.
I thought today we were nearly there, and again, we don't want to be nearly there. We want to win.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can take into next week a bit of confidence and go to Headingley where it's fun.
Yeah.
Special.
What would that mean to get that win? You know, 2006, I think was the last win. Like, it'd be huge to beat them.
It'd be special, definitely. And it's going to be hard work. It's going to take hard work to get there, and taking the opportunities when you get that opportunity.
There's a lot made about the refereeing before the first test and the second test. Obviously, you're playing the first, but did it feel any different to a Super League game today in terms of ruck speed or anything like that?
I think it was a bit of a mix, to be honest. I'm being honest. I'm not really fussed on talking about the referee. It is what it is. Like, they're going to ref the way they want to ref the game. But we can't use that. We can't use that for any kind of excuse. They had men sent us in bin as well. We need to take opportunities on that. So we've got to be honest with ourselves. And we need opportunities that can come across. Not many, but we've got to take them. So especially against Aussies.
It seemed like you had them rattled at times. The physicality and a bit of niggle and whatever. Got under the skin.
But that's what it's about. That's what Test match rugby is about.
Exactly.
It's competitive. Everyone gets stuck into each other, so that's what it's about.
Not that you want to condone pushing and shoving and fighting, but it seemed to get everyone up in terms
of the crowd loved it.
Yeah, I thought the atmosphere was great today. I really enjoyed being out there, and the crowd was full as well. And that little bit of niggle probably pushed the fans up a little bit more, and that's what it's all about. It's good.
Thank you. Cheers. Thanks, Callum. Thanks a lot. Nice. All the best. Just won Ashes, mate. How does that feel?
Yeah, pretty surreal, mate. Obviously, as a kid growing up, watching these games, setting your alarms and waking up to watch it and to be a part of it. Such a special team, and to be able to wear the green and gold, no better feeling.
What was that? What was the intensity like? Because it looked pretty brutal. A lot of scuffles, a lot of niggle, like Origin, basically.
Yeah, it was, mate. It was a physical game, and that's what you expect from a Test match. And any time you come up against England, you expect it to be like that. And I thought it was everything that we prepared for. We prepared really well throughout the week, and I'm sure if we didn't prepare that well, we probably wouldn't have got the job done.
There wasn't a lot of composure out there. Did they have you guys rattled at one point, or?
No, I think we just the emotion probably got the better of us in that first standard, but you'd rather go that way than the other way. But we'll have a look at that and make sure that we prepare well and try and make it 3-0.
And your mate Morgan was pretty pumped up.
Yeah, big Morgs. He's a beast, mate, and I see what he does every week at Canberra, and I respect him on and off the field, and he's a great mate of mine.
He had a great game. It made a big impact for England.
Yeah, I was surprised he didn't play in the first game, mate. Obviously, I get to see firsthand what he does at Clubland, and I thought he was outstanding for them tonight.
Going to Leeds now, is the aim like 3-0? Do you think you guys will ease off or just ramp up even more to get the whitewash?
I think we just need to prepare the same again, mate. Obviously, you see within Origin series and stuff like that, when there's 3 games, not many teams go 3-0, and that's what we want to do. We've come over to set that standard, and that's what we want to achieve.
Is it a higher level of physicality this week you had from England coming back at you?
Yeah, I thought they ramped up the intensity, that's for sure, and I thought we matched it pretty well, but we probably went away from playing our style of footy there for a little bit and just went head-to-head with them.
With the extra week, did you expect that you might be better as a team this week?
Yeah, I think we're just gelling. Every session we're getting better. I thought we were still probably pretty far off our best, but sometimes that's just the way the footy goes. And I thought we did well to come away with the win. Obviously, there was a hostile crowd here, and that's what you want from them.
With the 2-0 scoreline, obviously wrapped up, what does the motivation become now?
I think it's pride within your jersey. You represent your country. You wear the green and gold jersey. Any time that you put that jersey on, you've got to honour that jersey, and that's what it's about now.
Sam Tonkin said before the series that it means more to the Poms than it does to Australia. What do you make of that? It seems a bit disrespectful.
Yeah, I think any time you see them sort of comments, it's probably how they feel, but we know what we have in that group, and we know how much Australia means to us, and we showed that.
They used to say play rugby union instead of well play league and go to Campbelltown. You've had a good year travel-wise, haven't you? You start off in Vegas and now you're played in front of a massive crowd today. So it's good experiences as a league player today, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I think I nearly went to every city in Australia as well. Played in Perth, Darwin, Queensland, New South Wales, and then obviously started the season in Vegas and finished the season in England. It's been a pretty cool year and one that I'm very grateful for.
How does that compare to Allegiant? I guess it's a more hardcore crowd here than in America, isn't it? So
that was probably the most hostile crowd I've ever played at. Probably the way that the stadium's built probably creates that environment. And, it was pretty cool to be a part of.
But does good experiences keep players in the game, do you think? Like if they're thinking of doing something else or playing another sport, is it part of sort of the attraction now that you can travel, you can have good experiences?
Yeah, I think Peter and Andrew are doing a great job on expanding our game and taking us over international and showcasing what a great sport rugby league is. I truly believe it's the best sport in the world, and that's why I love playing it.
Good on you, mate. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you. Mate, 3 years ago you came and won a World Cup.
Yeah,
you just won an Ashes. You must love playing in England.
Oh yeah, it's mad playing over here. I was just thinking that on the camera there, but very passionate fans and just love coming over here and representing our country and all our families over the other side of the world. So that's pretty cool.
How tough was that game? Like England wanted to bash us.
Yeah, you can definitely see it at the start of the game, but we just felt like we just had to stick to the process, and it was a strange one. I didn't touch the ball probably like 15 minutes into the game just because it was stop-start and penalties and all kind of stuff, but that's just rugby league. You just got to try to find your feet and try to find the rhythm, and I thought we'd done that through that sort of period there.
And the scramble D, I mean, they had Reece went off, and you still didn't concede a try like that.
Yeah,
it's impressive.
Kevin spoke about it at the start of the camp. D's most important. We know that we can score points, but scrambling for each other is the most important thing. And I thought we did that tonight. I think they scored one try last week. We were very disappointed in that, but to keep them no tries this week.
You mentioned the passionate fans. I mean, how much can that work against England? In that, how much does that G you up to really stick in there?
Yeah, well,
with the noise in the first half,
we couldn't hear a thing. So I was trying to talk to my centre and my three man. It was just too noisy because of the fans were just screaming out. But yeah, it definitely does help the home team. But we just stuck to our guns and stuck to the process and ended up getting the result in the end.
Is there anything that helps the opposition in those cases where you think, Christ, we're going to hold it?
Probably when you're defending your line. You're trying to talk to the person next to you, trying to get them off the line and give me a bit of line speed. But I feel like that's a big advantage, especially when you're defending your try line.
For you now, do you want to play in a third test? You get off to the pub?
100%. We just spoke about it in the. We just spoke about it in the sheds there. We've still got one more game to go, and we want to try to prepare the very best we can, and hopefully give it a whitewash. It's going to be a very tough game next week. Obviously, playing Origin, it's hard to get up for, but it's how you prepare through the week, and that's what I feel like we've done the last 2 weeks. Is really build our preparation in our game.
Is there inspiration those teams of like Mal in '82 and Wally '86, like whitewash, and Invincibles? You know what I mean? Like that's
Kevin Walder, tells us a yarn every session. So hopefully we can make it pretty special for everyone. It sucks when you obviously won the series, because obviously being a part of State of Origin, you've won the 2 games and lost the third game. It's not the same feeling sort of thingy, so it's pretty hard to celebrate. But hopefully we can do it next week.
Did you notice a change of atmosphere between last week and this week? Was it quite evident on the field?
Yeah, we knew that it was going to be a hostile environment up here. Obviously, a lot of rugby league fans, not too far away. But yeah, like I said, the boys really dug deep and just stuck to the process when the pressure was on us. And yeah, we got the result tonight, and that's all that matters. So that's good.
To only concede 1 try in 2 games, what is it about the Australian defence that keeps it so tight?
We've got the best players in the world, and Kevy really reminds us of that. But I feel like just our connection from the start of the camp to now just shows how close we are as a group. And big shout out to Kevin, the coaching staff. It's bringing a group together in a short period of time is pretty hard to do. And when you're with good people, enjoying your footy, enjoying your training, that's what makes it a lot easier.
And you'll know better being on the pitch. How far do you feel England are away from Australia?
Oh mate, they're tough siders. We didn't get everything right in defence, but our scramble Ds, that was probably the biggest standout for Australia. 100%.
You're one of the veterans now. The
Reece calls me uncle now, right? It's crazy.
Reece is called your uncle. You got to teach those boys, what it means to wear the green and gold.
We all speak about this as the pinnacle of rugby league. Obviously Origin's massive, but when you put the Kangaroos jersey on, you're playing with the best players in the world. You're probably the best player in your position in the world, and that's what Kevy and the coaching staff drove this camp. Thanks,
Josh.
Appreciate the love, eh? Thank you.
All right. They were good interviews, John. Thanks for that. We'll just get our contact details out of the way, and then we'll start giving our views on everything. I'm an Englishman who has coached in Australia for a long time. You can get me at admin@rugbyleaguecoach.com.au, at Rugby League Coach on socials, or rugbyleaguecoach.com.au. John, where can they get you?
They can get me on X at Johnny D. Davidson, and on Patreon at rugbyleaguehub.com, long reads, and sometimes in The Guardian and the iPaper. I'm a journalist from Australia who's been living in the UK for 13 years, who keeps getting called an English journalist, which is
Johnny D. Davidson. Is your middle name Derek? As in Derek.
It isn't. My middle name is Dennis. Thank you very much.
Dennis. Anthony, where can people get you?
Yeah, Anthony Broxton, or is it Brixton? We always forget. Hope and Glory on the last. No, I love it. I might adopt it. Because Brixton's cool, right? So, I'll be associated with that. Hope and Glory Rugby League, that's what we talked about. And I'm, on X at Sides of History, Labour_history. Bit of politics, bit of rugby league, if that's your bag.
And Chris, if anybody emails me, I'll send it. Asking for you, I'll send it to you.
You just pay them. You just pay them.
Via Royal Mail. I'll send it. Okay, let's do some analysis. Both teams brought a cacophony of crap in attack, I thought, in this game, John.
You should be writing for The Guardian with those kind of technology.
Sorry. Atrociousness, an abundance of atrociousness.
I've not seen an Australian team play that bad for a long while. Some of the errors, like Marky Mark just trying to backflip the ball to himself, Tino throwing an offload in contact. There was just no ball security, particularly in the first half. I think the completion was again something was at 65 or something like that. It was pretty torrid stuff.
Anthony Daniel Jarvis, the pitch invader, he had more impact on the Australian line than the whole England attack has in the first two games.
Yeah, he did well to get past the stewards and get onto the pitch, didn't he? Could do with it, maybe some of his attacking flair. You just knew, didn't you, in that first half watching England, that Australia are obviously going to do what they always do, like score 2 or 3 tries quickly. They always do it, and they did it. So could England actually score in that first half when they had that 20-minute period? Johnson, Young getting clattered across the head. I mean, they didn't feel like there was any clear-cut chances. So where you were like, England should have scored there. There was that bit where Knowles fumbled it. Like those, you have to score all 3 of them. You have to be 18-0 up to beat Australia because they're going to score 24 points probably. Obviously, they only scored 14 this time, but had they been chasing, they probably would have got more. Big debate in the pub after talking about attack is why did England go for 2 when it was 2-0? And do you really think that you're going to kick your way to beating Australia by 2 points? And are you going to give up that opportunity to get 6, knowing how hard it is to score a try? It was early on, so you can understand why they wanted to level it up, but I think you've got to go for the points there, I think.
It's early in the game. I mean, they wouldn't be the first team to go for the 2.
Absolutely, and you can understand why. And Australia kept doing it, but when Australia kept doing it, I think the England fans were quite relieved because they're like, right, well, they're probably not going to score a try on the set. I think England, it showed that England were quite happy just to sort of stay in the game and 2-2. And if we can stay at 2-2 and 4-4 for 60 minutes, can we jag a try? And we all know that is never the way that we've beaten Australia. The attack was the disappointing aspect, and if they could, it would have just been great to see them score a try early on, get the crowd even more pumped, and see what happened after that. But obviously, we didn't get it.
Chris, you're going to be called Chris on this podcast rather than Dad or Father or anything like that.
Right.
Hang on. You know what it reminded me of? The 1994 third test at Ellen Road. Do you remember that, when Great Britain threw the kitchen sink at Australia and came away with nought?
I need to go and look at that.
Yeah.
Do you remember that, Chris?
I do indeed, yes. I think the problem with yesterday, was the thing that you talked about, and John, was the level of confidence in the team. And I think going for goal at the penalty just displayed that. And subsequently, the lack of invention was startling. The lack of risk when it was needed. Somebody to take it on and direct it. I think first half performance, England matched Australia. I thought both sides were tired. I thought Australia looked a bit under the pump. I thought they were making loads of individual errors. Master Walsh made loads. Or not loads, that's an exaggeration, but he
made a few.
Yeah, he made a few. He wasn't the player we saw last week or in the grand final, but after 50 years of waiting, the wait goes on. And I was astounded by the mainstream media, the reports I read after the match yesterday evening.
You, John.
The MSM.
Yeah.
Fake news media.
Oh, we're going into it already.
Yeah. I mean, whether that's people playing it safe because they want to continue to be journalists and not devalue the game in any way, but the way they built up the way England played, I think was sad. It was a lot better in the first half than last week, but that is as much as I can say about it. The lack of invention was appalling.
Well, Chris, you can be assured that this isn't mainstream media, and I'm going to now unleash on what was seen. England were absolutely awful in attack, boys, and quite frankly, from a analysis point of view, it's either they're not doing what the coach wants or they are, and it's the wrong plan and poor coaching. And please hold that thought and tell me what you think. And to be fair, Sean Wayne in neither of the post-match press conferences has said, to my knowledge, we attack poorly. So that makes me think potentially he's either not acknowledging that or trying to make sure that it doesn't get mentioned. So please tell me your thoughts on that. John, I'll start with you.
I agree with exactly what you said. I don't think he is a attack-minded coach. That's not how his teams have played it before. It's grinding, wrestle-dominated style footy, and I think that went out of vogue in the NRL 5 or 6 years ago, and that's just sort of been reflected in the different way the game is played now. When the game opened up in the second half, the Australians took their chances. They brought on Tommy Dearden as the 13, and they played a lot quicker, a lot more mobile middle unit, and England left Mikey Lewis on until the 69th minute, and he came out a hooker, and he's a 5'8". So, I think you nailed it, Lee.
They had too many hit-ups when they were setting up in good ball. So good ball, for those who don't know, is depends on the definition of the coach, but 30 metres away from the opposition try line-ish. They had too many hit-ups quite often in that area and were actually telling Australia where they intended to go. So if they wanted to shift left, they'd sort of do 2 carries that went left on the field, if that makes sense, and then shifted left. So they were very predictable in that manner. And it reminded me of under-10s because they were just shifting the ball sideways. They were running to what I've heard called in Australia corner flag football, where everybody's sort of running towards the corner flag. Nobody was running straight into holes. Nobody was coming back in on the angle. Last week, I was critical of that, if you remember, of the halves going too close to the line before trying to move the ball. This week, they either didn't do that at all, which is fine in certain circumstances, but when they did go to the line, they were doing it at the wrong time. You need to go towards the line when the defense is moving backwards, not when they are in your face. And therefore, that speaks to core skill, knowledge. That speaks to intensity of football IQ, if you like. And the halves just didn't know what to do. It felt like to me. Mikey Lewis, I feel, could have been brought on in the second half of the first half to be a slightly bigger body than Jez Litton. Jez Litton started the game fantastically, but he actually wore himself out during the game. So I would have liked to have seen Mikey Lewis come on at the back end of the first half, maybe the start of the second half, slightly heavier body. Jez Litton could have been a lighter body at the end of the game when Australia were tired too. So I thought that was naive. Their only shape in attack seemed to be, and tell me if you noticed anything different, but it was the front man and the back man, the block play, the X play. Yeah. It didn't seem to be much else, and there was an obsession with the front man for some reason. Also, in the second half, when they were chasing the game, the middle of the field, as you look at it from the press box, John, or the TV screen. So if you look at it, try line to try line, the middle of the field, quite often defenses don't know whether to jam in there or to defend intensely there because they don't think the opposition are going to attack. England had to force some plays there when they were chasing the game, and they didn't. They just kept trying to set up front men and then try and play on the back of that instead of getting Australia when they were cold. So when you're defending a game, when you're defending your own goal line, your antenna is up because you don't want to concede a try. When you're defending near the opposition's goal line, your antenna is up because you want to keep them there. In the middle of the field, it's your chance to have a little snooze. It's your chance to have a little break from the intensity. And England weren't testing them. And instead, they kept going to the front man rather than the back man. They dropped the ball at key stages. Do you remember Knowles' knock-on 14 minutes that was just completely cold? We were building momentum, and he just dropped the ball.
Both of the Aussie tries were off errors.
That's right. The start of the second half.
Walmsley at the start of the second game, didn't he?
I'm going to do Walmsley's knock-on, and then it was obviously Johnston's drop of the kick that had to go off. So that,
Now, I've analysed that second half, the start of it, which in both games now, England have been left wanting. Australia have come out stronger. But Australia haven't come out stronger on this occasion. England's exit sets were fantastic. They were the best of the game. But it was the concentration levels at the other end. It was the like you say, the Walmsley knock-on, but also the next one, England passed the ball into touch, didn't they?
They did. Yeah, there was three. The other thing was they give it. One of the players was offside. I think. Do you remember they bombed it up, and like 6 minutes second half, great kick down there, pinned for offside, and it's just like. And then Johnson's thing, Walmsley, like 3 massive errors in the first 7 minutes. Like they were. They were kind of doing that in the first half though as well, weren't they? They were dropping the ball but not as much. But the Morgan Knowles one sticks out where you felt like they're building some pressure here. There's one where Johnson, it went wide, and it was probably too soon. Again, there's the one where Young got clattered. Go on, City. But it was.
Chris bought me this, didn't you?
Yeah, I did indeed.
Yeah, that's more successful than the GB tracksuit. Successful brand.
Not in 1992, it wasn't.
No. This was actually launched, not this one, on Tony Wilson's TV show, which I do talk about in the book that you can buy.
Open Glory. See, Tony I've done it again, John. You could do this for the Archie's podcast when you're on.
Yeah, I'm even wearing the merch to try and generate.
Tony Wilson has a new. Tony Wilson has a new.
Tony Wilson.
Anthony H.
Yeah.
Anthony H. Wilson, yeah.
Went to my school.
I'd just like to remind you, boys, we've got some listeners in Australia who won't have a Scooby-Doo what you two are going on.
Don't watch 24-hour party people with Steve Coogan.
There's also a listener in Yorkshire who doesn't have a clue what you're going on. That's John, and he's on this podcast.
No, I've read Anthony's book, and I have seen 24-hour party people. It's great.
If you want to know about 24-hour party people, buy bloody Anthony's book, will you? Land of Open Glory.
Can I say something?
Wait, I'm on a rant. You know the midfield bomb. You know the midfield bomb. I'm the host. I bring you in, Chris. You know the midfield bomb. It was a terrible kick. Who kicked it? Was it Smith?
I can't remember.
Right, I can't remember. But the ref called Tino Fa'asawa Malawi out. Right? The kicker didn't switch on to that and still tried to kick the ball, and Tino was in his face, so he kicked it higher as a result, so the kick got interfered with. But the ref did his job calling Tino out. Tino didn't come within the parameters to penalise Tino. But what the kicker should have done was avoided Tino, moved out of the way, and then kicked. Not smart enough. 71 minutes when Australia were down to 12. We dropped the ball cold when we were chasing the game. Gus Gould in the Australian commentary on Channel 9 said they've got no plan, really, being like that for 2 test matches. But that said, he was also critical of some of the Australia attacking sets too. Chris, you wanted to say something?
Well, I just was going to say that the real panic set in for England when Australia went down to 12 men. I couldn't believe what I was watching. All they had to do was pass the ball sharpish across the field and have some runners coming in, and they just were clueless. They were just going one man up all the time. It summed up the game to me. And like I said before, people were talking about green shoots of recovery in the press, and this is something to build on. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll get into that because we'll talk about the future of the England structure and things in and around that. John, as a token Australian, you are now allowed to talk. Gus Gould was also critical of a lot of Australia's attacks, and you've also mentioned that. You tweeted not long after that Australia only completed at 69%, and I've noticed that Australia blew 11 chances to. I mean, I've watched enough Australia versus England or Great Britain Rugby League to know they probably could have scored in those 11. Put it that way.
No, I think their attack was poor. I think overall, apart from their defence, they played poorly. But you have to give England a fair bit of credit, I think, in that first half because they did rattle them. I think that was the game plan, was it? Which they didn't do in the first test was be physical, be aggressive, get under their skin. And there was a lot of niggle. What we had probably 2 scuffles or all-ins in the first couple of minutes. There was high shots. There was, and the Aussie players admitted after the game, that they got bashed and that the emotion got the better of them. And I think that definitely helped rattle the Aussies and helped England. And I think Australia kind of got a bit more composure in the second half and realised, well, hey, we don't actually need to respond to this. We can just play footy. And I think that's where the difference is when those skills and those smarts, or as you called it, the footy IQ, came into play. Because, if someone wants to bring you down to the gutter and fight you down there, to use a boxing parlance, well, if you're not that sort of fighter or you've got superior skill, you don't do it, do you? You stay
it's not winning teams that bring the opposition into the gutter.
Yeah, you stay out on the outside of the ring and you work off your jab, don't you? And that's what Australia did.
AB, it was the second test, but to me it was like a typical first test because of the amount of errors. And normally what happens is the first test, both teams are rusty. And let's be honest, England had a right to be rusty too because they don't get support in terms of warm-up games and training time, etc. So if we just write off the first test for now, the second test should have been a little bit more distinguishable from its quality of football, but that wasn't there really, was it?
I don't know because I haven't properly watched it back and analysed. I've seen the highlights and obviously it was in the ground. It felt to me, it doesn't feel like there was as many errors and as pedestrian. It was frustrating watching England not being able to score tries, but it felt so different to Wembley. And the crowd were obviously enjoying that game a lot more than they did Wembley because the atmosphere was fantastic. I don't think, particularly in the ground, particularly anyone that I was with, was thinking that this is a bad England performance or that they're doing terrible in attack. I think the bit where the bit where all kind of the real wind was taken out of the sails was, when the Australia scored the try, because as soon as that happened in quick succession, to my recollection, I don't think England really fired a shot again after that. I mean, I know they had a chance where Walsh ends up in the sin bin. So, yeah, there was definitely, maybe that's the way that you view the game. You're more optimistic when it's 2-2, so you think this is okay and we're doing all right here, hang on, hoping that for the best. You've obviously gone back and analysed it properly and looked at our attack.
Yeah, I wasn't on the piss in a pub like you naughty boy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's how the England fans were watching it. I think they were enjoying it. They certainly were enjoying it more than Wembley. I think Everton should be the National Rugby League ground now. But I think it was.
Anthony, were you booing the Australian anthem as well as the fans?
No, I wouldn't do that.
That was interesting. There was quite a lot.
Wasn't many singing the England national anthem though either. I think he's quite a big Republican, and it's in Liverpool.
Do you not want to save our king? Bloody hell!
Yeah, exactly. In the week of Prince Andrew.
I can't remember many sporting events where you get. I can remember Australia Uruguay 2005 when we had to beat Uruguay to make the World Cup, and we did after 32 years. And there was the booing of the Uruguayan national anthem, and that was interesting because you don't get that joke. But it was a hostile atmosphere. It was hostile for Australia, and it was a great, there was a great atmosphere. I thought the crowd really got into it. It was such a difference from the first test.
That didn't come across on the BBC coverage, and I didn't have the sound turned down. It seemed livelier, but whether that
I get abused on my socials when I say this Australian side isn't that good. Chris, you've watched Ashes Test since 1742. What did you think of what do you think of this Australian side so far?
Right, well, yeah, 1742 is a slight exaggeration.
Sorry, 1746.
Yeah, I think we've been singing from the same hymn sheet for 50 years of my life.
55.
And I look at the team and like my interest in rugby league, the games we used to go to anywhere.
I do, but all the listeners don't.
Yeah, we used to go everywhere, amateur, professional, watching you play. That was back in the day.
Torture.
He had his notebook. He was taking notes. This is what you do.
Yeah.
This is what I'm aiming for.
Yesterday, I thought, hold on, to the general public, because I live in a rugby league heartland, and yet there's only one person I can talk to about rugby league. I'm surrounded by rugby league clubs, and I think to the average fan, who would they know in that Australian team? Who would they have heard of? There was no Mal Meninga, no Laurie Daly, no Rod Reddy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And
so what? How does this Australian side compare? That's what I'm asking you, because I'll be honest. I think the way that TV is now and social media, I think you're wrong. I think so many gens, whatever it is, do know Reece Walsh. They do know Nathan Cleary, but not for the sporting reasons that we would know others of yesteryear.
But I think because of the state of the game, you said we'd get onto it later, I think the interest in rugby league has narrowed.
Can you answer my question, Chris, or else you're not coming on again? What was this Australian side like? How good was this Australian side in your eyes?
In my eyes,
what you've seen in the past,
I expected a massive improvement. I expected a 40-point deficit yesterday, and I thought England matched them for the first half, and it was just their nous and the way they've been schooled in the NRL that saw them through the game. As outstanding players, I would not take anything away from the two matches to say to me that this is a super Australian team. Just the opposite. I would put it at the bottom of the list of all the teams that I have seen.
The bottom. Okay. John, can we blame the referee for the lack of attacking space?
No, I don't think you can blame the referee. Look, I think there was probably some questionable calls. Reece Walsh might have had another yellow for that high shot on Young, or he could have even had a red for the second one. But no, I don't think blaming the ref. It's too easy in rugby league. Everything's the ref's fault.
But it wasn't, was it, John? If you read the comments after, it was the video ref's fault. People were pretty magnanimous about the Australian referee and scathing about the English video ref.
Before the game, it was their ref. It was Australia's ref.
Yeah, when I said
to help them.
When I said referee, I just meant match officials. If it's not, the video ref, it's the on-field ref, or it's the linesman for not picking up forward passes. It's always someone's fault. I mean, you're talking about comparison. I don't think and they may. Well, I think they will whitewash England next week in the third test. So, are they the invincibles? Are they the unbeatables of '86? No, but I think. If you've got Nathan Cleary, Munster, Grant, Reece Walsh, I say, you're not a bad team. But I would say probably if you compare, and I just brought it up here, look at the 2022 team, the Australian team that won the World Cup final, and you've got Tedesco, Holmes, Mitchell, Adokar, Munster, Cleary, Liam Martin, Crichton, Yeo, Harry Grant, Carrigan, and Murray, Tino. That's probably a better team, to be fair, than the one that's playing in this.
But what I'm saying is I'm not being disparaging to this team because they've got the job done. All I'm saying is, comparatively to what I've seen over my time, it's I'm being
and that's
careful.
the question. That was a question.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's the worst. Well, yes, I am saying it's the worst, but still far too good or too knowledgeable.
Let's stay on Australia for a bit. AB, Reece Walsh. To me, the game to Reece Walsh was the Reece Walsh that we've seen for most of the last few years in the NRL. Rocks or diamonds, basically.
Yeah, absolutely, and that it's a shame that I think it's a shame that we didn't get if this was the first test, right? That we just watched that and we were having this review, and that was the first test. We'd be thinking England are a right chance of winning the second test, obviously, because you'd have said, well, okay, take the attack, but Australia didn't look great. England were up for it physically; they didn't get dominated. But there's all that discussion about the ruck that we had that really, to me, and you might disagree, it didn't really seem to affect England. It felt like they both looked good from both. There was no advantage. There was no clear advantage from Australia from having a speeded up ruck from being at the ground. So all that debate around that's gone. But Walsh turned up that performance last week and he stopped the tries and we went through all that. So yeah, he's obviously had an unbelievable last few weeks and he's just had his 5 greatest games of all time, one of the greatest runs, and you can well see him next season having a. But that's why you love the greats, because sometimes, imagine George Best, right? If we go back that, imagine he had some bad games, but then he had days where he was like an absolute genius, and that's the bit clips you always see. So I think we were glad that it's just a shame Walsh didn't have that performance at Wembley from an England perspective. But yeah, he's obviously got that in him.
Let's go into what the Fourth Estate have said in this. John, I'm very disappointed in you. You didn't write about Everton Football Club in your opening paragraph in there.
I know. I had a Tim Cahill line all set up.
Tim Cahill.
But then the fact it wasn't at Goodison Park, it was at Hill Dickinson, and then I thought, I heard some Black Eyed Peas on the way in. And I thought that works really well. So.
Well, I've got a feeling that this is going to make your ears pop up. Our man Paul Crawley on Fox Sports, under a headline, "An embarrassment to Test Match Rugby League," said, "You can only call it as you see it. While the Aussies' attack was poor, the fact referee Grant Atkins couldn't keep the teams apart certainly didn't help. Which leads us to the issue of the lack of clear line markings on the field. Seriously, how in the hell do you have a rugby league test match played at a state-of-the-art stadium where the referee can't keep the teams 10 metres apart? Because he can't see the bloody lines. Hill Dickinson Stadium, which cost an estimated £800 million and is the home of Premier League side Everton, is supposed to be one of the world's greatest sporting venues. But the ground staff were obviously more worried about the next soccer match to be played there and bugger the rugby league. It's just not good enough for what is supposed to be the pinnacle of our sport." Chris, you answer that one.
Well, I think it sums up the state of the first 2 test matches, where the commentator there is more concerned about the colour of the grass than what he saw on the pitch. It's I think you struggle to find a better stadium. I've not been there, but it looks impressive on the telly. The facilities look good, and I just don't get that. To pick on that is, how much of the article or the commentary was that?
Yeah. Oh, it was an opinion piece where it's a few different things. Sunday Times, the UK Sunday Times, John Westerby said, with a sense of awesome inevitability, Australia once again proved themselves a class apart from England to clinch this 3-match series with a game to spare. The home side, to their credit, gave a performance much improved on their showing in the 26-6 defeat at Wembley a week earlier, in particular with a rousing defensive display in a fiery first half that ended 4-4. AB, was it rousing?
Our defence, it was what we'd wanted at Wembley, right? The aggression. I think Australia's defence was good in the first half as well. It's just go back to what we said about taking the two and the rest of it. It felt like England needed to do something different, and I think they had to score first just to start getting the Australians thinking. That, as John said, the atmosphere was so different to Wembley. I know there's a sort of discussion about whether it actually impacts them. The crowd was so up for it. I think we had to score in that first 20 minutes to win the game. And the fact that we didn't, the fact we took the two, yes, that might have been a factor, just defences like finding each other out. But why can't we just find a way to score a try? What is the problem with our attack? Is it a problem with halfbacks? Is it? And you would hope, talking about the fourth estate, that this would be a discussion point over the next few months, years, whatever. Have we got enough halfbacks? How do we get
two tries in 4 games against Australia?
How do we get Herbie Farnworth into the game? Unbelievable. You'll know more than me. Is that the game plan that's not getting him in, or is it because Australia are too good and it's obviously different than the NRL? Is it because he doesn't play enough with England and these guys? Is that the problem with us, our attack in general? Is that Australia's problem? They play together in Origin, but this is the first time these guys have really played together. Second time. Back in the old days, the tours that I wrote about in the book, you did have 8 warm-up games and then a test, and then they go and play all these others. So you do get to know the players more, but they also play with each other a lot more. So those combinations, by the end of it, they would always be a lot better, obviously. So all that, I think, needs to be part of the debate, because it doesn't feel like we're going to debate all the other things. We've got a World Cup. Surely the big question is, how do we create a top quality English halfback that can go and play in the NRL and then come and win an Ashes series or World Cup for England? Because Tonga and Samoa, they're hoping to do that with their players, aren't they? They realise that they need top quality halfbacks. It feels like the debate about halves and young halves and how we get them is just missing in England.
It's funny you say that, because Ross Heppenstall, John's mate in the UK Telegraph, he basically wrote a manifesto. I don't know how he got it into the Telegraph, but he basically, there was a little bit of reference to the game, and then it was all about the IMG and the potential Australian takeover and clubs' interest. So he's managed to sneak something in, but he did write at the start of it, England coach close to tears as Australia win the Ashes for 14th time on trot. Sorry, that was the headline. An emotional Sean Wayne was almost reduced to tears, but just about held it together after England succumbed to a demoralising defeat, which saw Australia retain the Ashes. And then, John, we can't go past your erstwhile comments in The Guardian. Fans arrived at Everton's resplendent Hill Dickinson Stadium. You actually called it the Hill Dixon Stadium to the sound of Black Eyed Peas' 2009 hit, Tonight's Gonna Be a Good Night, reverberating around Liverpool's docks. And boy, was it for the Kangaroos, but only just. The green and gold won their 14th Ashes series in a row, the first since 2003, with a solid second half response that decided the second test in their favour. But a display for the ages from Australia, a routine or one-sided victory most expected, it was not. England played with fire, matching the Kangaroos and frustrating them at every stage in an eye-catching first half. But as the last 55 years have told us, it was still Australia holding the trophy aloft. John, I think you've won the writing competition again this week. For mentioning the Black Eyed Peas.
This week.
Yeah.
Anthony's just made me cry. I mean, talking about halfbacks, I mean, they just spring to mind. Alex Murphy, Tony Myler, Gary Schofield, Sean Edwards.
Sean Long with hindsight.
Yeah. I mean, even Lee Brace, who was sat in the coaching box, would have performed.
Well, is he the attack coach now, Lee Brace?
Yeah.
That
Rob
he's
Burrow, God rest his soul.
Yeah. I mean, we can all applaud England's defence in the first half, but I might be wrong here, but any ball sport that I've watched, it's you get your defence right and then your attack. Defence first, then your attack. Where was it? Please, where was it? I mean, the kicking game went to absolute pot in the second half.
George Williams, John. This really scared me. John Williams said it was a reality check and that England are obviously not as good as they thought they were. That scared me, that comment.
Yeah. I mean, just to go sideways a little bit about the skills and lack of a halfback. So I had a chat after the first test with a former Great Britain international who played the NRL, and I've had this thought for about 10, 15 years, and I think one of the big differences, and I'd say with Australia and New Zealand compared with the UK, is touch footy. Now, and you would know this, Lee, because you lived there, touch footy is massive.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone plays touch footy, league or union, and it builds skills. You play, boys v boys, men v men, mixed, men and women playing together. It just builds that skill set. Now, it doesn't. Well, I mean, it's basically rugby league without the tackling and the kicking. That's where it was invented in the 70s in South Sydney. But in England, it's run by the RFU, and it's nowhere near as popular. And it just those skill sets aren't being built. I don't think. I've played amateur rugby union in South Yorkshire, and there was people who played rugby union in their life who couldn't execute a 2-on-1. They couldn't catch pass properly. They just get the ball, duck their head, and run for contact. They wouldn't aim for space, and it's just. You said it before, footy IQ. Where does that? Why is that not being taught? Where is that base of skills? Where are the Benji Marshalls or the Raggy Chasers or the Reece Walshes being built? Because they're not being built in parks and fields in Brighouse and Wigan.
Let's pretend we're the committee now that picks coaches for England, okay? And I want to keep this brief. Your first answers, okay? First instinct: do we need a new coach? AB.
Yes.
AB first.
I think the other you said first things. I think you need to address: is this a full-time job or a part-time job that someone who is coaching in Super League can do, like Brian Noble did? So I think that changes it. Because if you need a full-time coach, I think Sean Wayne probably has to stay. Because who else is going to come in and do that? But I think this is a job that could be done by a Matt Pete or whoever we decide is a young, coach, or an Ian Watson, whoever we decide.
So it's full time right now. What we're doing?
It's never been full time. No international rugby league job in terms of a team is full time.
It's not full time in its reality, but people get full time jobs doing it.
Kevin Walters came in and bang, or the celebrity hires, let's call them that, Billy Slater or Laurie Down, the rest of the legends. Is that the approach that you want to go down? It's a big question, but I think it's too big just to say yes or no right now.
Of the top,
there needs to be a change. Clearly,
of the top 5 nations now, the only person who is the head coach of a club is the Tonga coach. So everyone else is either not employed by a club in a head coach capacity or an assistant coach. Chris, simple answer: do we need a new coach?
Yes.
Okay, John.
Yes.
Okay, so let's analyze why you think that. Okay, so did you know Sean Wayne has been the coach for nearly 6 years? So 2020 and 21, I think, are something of a write-off in terms of matches. But I would like to say that they're probably not in terms of preparation, mental preparation, getting information to players, etc. So he's had 5 campaigns, including a one-off match against the combined All-Stars. Did you know he's the joint longest-serving England or Great Britain coach ever, along with Mal Riley?
That's crazy.
And Steve McNamara. So from that angle, you could say he's definitely at that point where he needs to be analysed, I think. Because of the first 2 tests, the no tries or the 1 try. And again, the Man of Steel hasn't been picked. And people tell me, because I've not got enough of a read on Jake Connor's form, but people tell me how creative he is, and therefore we've got something creative over here that's not in the team, and a lack of creativity over here in the team. To put the tenure into some kind of context, Wayne Bennett coached England and Great Britain for 4 years. Tony Smith had them for 2 campaigns. John Kay for 5 years.
Wow.
Mal Reilly for 6 years. Brian Noble, Andy Goodway for 3 years. So, again, is that enough to assess him, John?
Well, I mean, he's had 3. Well, you could say 2 big tests, 2 big campaigns. He had the World Cup. They went to win it. They didn't win it. They didn't even make the final. So he could have been sacked after that. He came back. He beat Samoa and Tonga in series at home, and his next big test was the Ashes, and that's already gone after 2 tests. So what more evidence do you want? I'm sorry, but if England go to the World Cup, they'll be struggling to make the semi-finals at this point.
The worrying thing about the attack of the team, I had a look at the spine during the Sean Wayne tenure. In the World Cup in 2022, which was a 2021 World Cup, Tompkins was at fullback. Wellesby was at 6 for most of it. George Williams, who's played 10 of Sean Wayne's 13 games in charge, was in there too, and Mickey McLaurin was the hooker. Tonga in 2023, Wellesby was fullback. Lewis was in there. Smith was in there, and Darren Clark was in there. Williams didn't come until game 3. I think he must have been injured.
He was suspended, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Samoa 2024, Wellesby, Williams, and Smith in the halves, and Clark. If that's not international continuity, AB, I don't know what is.
But then there was a switch around this week, right? With AJ Wellesby coming out, and so, but the interesting thing about that is that it would be interesting to know. I know we've got the documentary that talks about what Sean Wayne's thinking was. Was he saying that? Was he saying like I wanted to pick Harry Smith, but then Lewis's performance in the grand final changed it, so I threw my thing out the window. Did he then watch the first game at Wembley and go, Jack Wellesby's been my guy, but that's changed? Or was Brimson brought in because he was thinking I'm not sure about Wellesby anyway? Well, then if you did have that, why was he made vice captain? Mm-hmm. Because you would think the vice captain would be someone that is guaranteed to play. You made a really good point, Lee, last week, and I was talking about this in the pub before the game. Because a few people actually came up and said, "Oh, the podcast is brilliant. We've got fans in the Denby Castle in Liverpool, so shout out for them for loving the pod." But your comment about there not being like clear bolters in the England team these days, we're talking about like there's maybe Knowles and a couple of others like Farnworth, but everyone else, the halfbacks, the fullbacks, the wingers, you could change them all around, and I think a lot of people have different opinions. I can't remember a time when we've only had a couple of players who everyone would be like they're in the 13. Because lots of people want Connor in, some want Williams in, some want Lewis, some want the others. Is that because there's a great depth of talent, or is it because it's just a really or we don't see these people enough play together as well, right? So they don't have the wins against Australia to then say, right, Williams beat Australia, so he's obviously the number 1 halfback now and not someone else. So that stuck with me that we don't have this settled side. When I actually I know Wayne has his settled people in the squad, but I think there's a lot of debate over who could come in, and you could actually change that team up quite a lot with a different coach.
Does all this about the development system, Chris, and the lack of footballer being produced, does that not mitigate Sean Wayne somewhat in that he can only coach what he has?
I think, that is a partial excuse. But I think these matches have shown he's scraping the bottom of the barrel. Whether, is it fair to judge him? Is he doing a really good job with what we've got? I think one of the problems is as well, and this has followed me all through my life, is that we have a conceit where our international teams are concerned. We invented these games, be it soccer, football, or be it rugby league, and it will change. because we invented the game and we expect to win. And yet we've not won anything in either sport, since the year zero. And in the meantime, what's happened to rugby league is that people aren't taking up the game. Simple as that. Young
English
people.
arrogance. We're getting to finally the key point. I love it.
Please, John, elaborate.
It is English arrogance where the national
Chris,
teams are concerned.
In sport generally, Chris, I've seen this with the Olympics, cricket. There's definitely an inflated sense of deserving success in particular sports. Football is a big one. And I think because the Premier League is so huge, but look at basically every Premier League. So I don't follow football nearly as close as I used to. I used to follow passionately, but where are the majority of the players from? They're not from England, are they? It's a global league. It's a global league where players come from Africa, they come from Italy, they come from Spain, they come from Germany. They do come from England, but they come from all over. But there's definitely a thought that we should be, and I mean England or Great Britain should be winning all these things. And I think when they get away,
Australians are the same though, right? I know you're better at a lot of other sports, but Australians expect to win a lot of sports, right? Cricket, rugby, like the Wallabies. They're expected to be better than they are.
No,
we think the same.
The Wallabies are not. Wallabies are
not
expected.
saying you expect to win, but there's a debate about why they are there, and that's the same thing that we're having with the England rugby league team, right? With football, it's the expectation that we should be competing all the time because we are England. But is that arrogance, or is that just a thought of? Isn't that just the same as what Australia do as well? I mean,
no, it ties into the whole empire, make Britain great again, Farage element, and you see it around. It ties in with the monarchy. It's all interlinked in my experience. After living in England for 15 years, I think the difference with Australia is there is perhaps sport is so deified in Australia, and Lee will agree to that. But I think in certain sports, a lot of sports, Aussies are seen as the underdogs, and we love that because we haven't got a big population, but we can medal, second to the United States or whatever, and they've got 400 million people, and we've got 27 people. We sort of thrive off that, but we're not also expected to win. We're not going to win FIFA World Cups, are we? But we can play well against Argentina and almost beat them, and we're quite proud of that. But we don't go in expecting to beat Messi because we know that's not realistic.
AB, I'm going to come back to you on this because you're a political animal. If you look at successful electoral campaigns of the last decade and a bit, take back control suggests we had control at some point. Make Britain great again, I suppose. Because we used to be great, obviously. And there is something in that, I think. And compared to Australia, I think it has an underdog tone to it in Australia, whereas England has an arrogance, as if it's our destiny to win something.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know. I think you're right, and John's correct in a sense. In the England, some of the punditry, and I think we talked about this previously, have said why Adrian Morley, I think it was, and John Wilkin and James Graham on their podcast was basically saying, why have England talked themselves up this week and talked down the Australians? And you saw a little bit of that documentary where George Williams and Jack Welsby go for that coffee and they say, oh, well, they've got some good players, but we've played against them and we are good as well, and they kind of won't know what hits them. So I don't know if that's English arrogance. John might say that is, or whether that's us trying to promote a competition in a country where we are the underdogs as rugby league, right? We're fighting for attention all the time. So for us to come out and say, yeah, we're a lot worse than Australia, they're probably going to batter us, and they've got class players, we're kind of underselling the product. And I think that's why a lot of that would be my explanation for why there's been a lot of sort of hyperbole about the history of the two nations, when actually, if you look into it, we haven't won it since 1970. So the history is Australia always win, but we always talk about mythological series like 88 victory that we talked about and others. So is that arrogance? From my personal perspective, I like to talk up the rivalry and I want it to be a really big rivalry, but that's not because I think England should win. and they because they're better than Australia. I think anyone who watches the NRL knows that we are the underdogs. But yeah, we're not comfortable talking ourselves up as underdogs, I suppose. So that there probably is an element of that. If that's
so we all agree something's not quite right. Okay. So now the next question is, how do we change it? So John, I'm going back to you. If we are going to replace the coach, who do we replace him with?
Well, that's a really interesting point, because I was talking to a few people about this, and some of the press box. He told me off the record, so I won't name him, but he's a fairly prominent media figure. And I threw 3 names at him, which I thought would be candidates, which was Matty Pete, Paul Rowley, and Willie Peters. And his suggestion was Darryl Powell. And I hadn't thought of Darryl Powell, but I think he's a good... When you look at what he's done with Wakefield, the fact that he's a former international, and what he did with Castleford, look, I think, if we're talking about pure coaching ability, anyone can win a comp with St Helens, Wigan, Leeds. But if you get Castleford up to first, if you get, Wakefield, you get Salford into a grand final. I know that was Ian Watson, not Paul Rowley, but you get my gist. It's a lot harder coaching job to do it with a lower budget or a weaker squad, so we say. But I think England, and there's a whole other thing about development and pairing with the NRL and Super League, but I think England as a national team needs a more modern coach, a younger coach, one with a better grasp of how rugby league is played at the elite level now, and who can, I guess, probably build, I don't know the right word for it, but the connection, that Willie Peters has done at Hull KR or that Matty Pete's done at Wigan. I think a change in coach is definitely needed.
Chris, I believe that we need somebody with NRL experience, because a lot of the mistakes I've seen England make in the first 2 tests from a technical point of view and aptitude point of view suggest that some of the basics aren't being covered. What say you?
I quite agree with you, but I think to myself, the fuss that comes around by appointing in any of our sports a foreigner immediately, you mentioned Wayne Bennett. I mean, compare that Wayne Bennett's tenure to what we've seen the last.
Well, what was funny about Wayne Bennett, sorry to interrupt, is people soon forgot that the year before he'd got so close to winning the World Cup.
He's the most successful
when he was
English coach since 95, isn't it?
Home series next New Zealand as well that we won, didn't we?
Yeah, and then because of the Great Britain tour, which to me was botched by the RFL.
But he hadn't got a clue TV tour, right? He was like, "Why I'm the England coach? Why am I?" And that kind of, is that right?
Yeah, I was on the GB tour. I went to the 2 games. I went to the game against Tonga in Hamilton, the first one, and then the second one against New Zealand at Eden Park. And the Tonga game was won by a piece of brilliance from, I think it went through 14 hands. And the New Zealand game was also down to basically 1 try. So they lost by very slow margins. But Wayne Bennett saw that as a preparation for the World Cup. He didn't understand the Great Britain brand. He didn't understand the history.
He thought Blake Austin was going to be a world-class winger for the World Cup.
But Chris is right. Though. There was a lot of people who hated him because he was.
I'd love a top end
media and stuff as well, right? Yeah,
I'd love a top end.
No, I agree.
I mean, Eddie Jones is another one. And Eddie's shall we say, a weird character, but he absolutely killed it for England for 3 years. Flogged the Wallabies. Got England into a World Cup final, and if they didn't lose their front rower in the first scrum or whatever, they might have beaten South Africa. And then it all went pear-shaped. But they did turn on him in terms of the media very quickly, and part of it is Eddie's fault. But Chris is right. If you're a national team, you definitely...
It's funny you named a left field, and funnily enough, I thought of Paul Rowley as well, because with limited resources up to this season, where 0 or minus resources, Salford on the day played some marvellous rugby.
It did.
And, we had a former Salford player in the team yesterday, didn't we, who didn't play particularly badly, did he?
Who?
He was there, weren't he?
Who?
What's it? Callum Watkins.
Callum
Yeah, he had a great
Salford lad.
Yeah, he played really well.
Yeah. So it's. I think until we do, how many times as in the last 50 years has this same conversation cropped up, and there was the real green shoots of recovery were in the early 90s, the early 2000s. And if that is the end result yesterday and we're having more green shoots, get the weed killer on it quick.
Because close enough isn't good enough, in my opinion. Nothing's changed. I bumped into Mike Stevenson, about 12 months ago. And Mike Stevenson, for those who don't know, was the Sky Sports commentator for many years, but he was also the person who scored what ended up being the winning try in the 1972 World Cup final, which was the last time Great Britain or England have beaten Australia in something resembling the series. I asked him what he thought about the fact that England or Great Britain hadn't beaten Australia for 19 years, haven't won the Ashes or a series for 55 years, 53 years if you count the World Cup. And he was upset about it. Right? I then asked him another question. I said, do you think we're the only two people who care? John, is the care factor going to be enough at RFL HQ?
I don't think it's a question of care. It's a question of money. It's a question of knowledge. It's a question of an organisation that in many ways, in many areas, is not fit for purpose. I think, and I've already written this week, I think the best answer, if you're going to change the English game and the British game, you're going to improve everything at all levels, is you get a partnership with the NRL and you work together and you build those leagues up. You leverage some of their marketing nous and some of their knowledge of how to run a professional competition, and then you boost the international game. Because rugby league's too small to be working against each other. It needs to join forces.
So is that the way out? So what this conversation about the coach has turned into also is why we're doing this. Okay. So I remember when Shaun Wane was appointed, it was basically, I think, one of the big reasons because he wasn't an Australian. So we went for the absolute opposite, if you like, of Wayne Bennett in many ways. Okay, somebody who was proud English, etc., etc. And I think smart operators, which I'd never accuse the RFL of being, they would look at World Cup cycles. Okay, so to that end, that's a tick in Shaun Wane's box, isn't it? We get to the next World Cup. Okay, so he's had the first World Cup, he gets to the next World Cup. So we've now got to look at the whole thing, I think, because that's what this conversation has led to. So how are we going to get England to win an Ashes series or win a World Cup? And in the late 90s, Sport England funding allowed us to put in the world-class performance plan and things started to change, but clubs ended up ruining that eventually. I won't go down the avenue there, but that's basically what happened. And what we saw was every other Great Britain or England side improve their performances significantly. I mean, Chris, you said earlier, we've not won the Soccer World Cup or the Euros, but the generation of soccer players that have been produced have got the best results since Sir Alf Ramsey in 1966 by getting to 2 Euro finals and getting to a World Cup semi-final. So even they've improved with 22% of English players in the English Premier League. Our Olympic medals tally went up significantly, and that was because of the investment from above and how it was applied. Rugby League balls that up, quite frankly, and has been a bit of a failure when it comes to turning that funding into international performance. So the next question now going around the table, starting with you, John, is how do we actually turn this thing around so that Shaun Wane or whoever we have in as coach can actually have the best circumstances and absolutely no excuses, because I think he's got a few excuses at the moment, if they don't win the Ashes or the World Cup? How can we turn that around?
Yeah, I think as I've already said it needs to be changed at all the levels. I think that experience of
But
rugby
what's
league
wrong?
in the
What's wrong? Sorry. So we can all sit here and say we need change, but what's wrong and what does it need to look like?
Well, the whole way the sport's structured, you mentioned a club self-interest. It's run by 12 or it'll be 14 owners, and they don't make there's no one making decisions for the benefit of the actual sport. They're made for we don't want to lose too much money this year and it'll help Wakefield or whatever. That's the way the sport's run. And I had this conversation with someone yesterday. The way and I'm sure Lee, you already know this, but the Aussie game wasn't, or maybe we talked about it in another podcast. The Aussie game wasn't doing well in the 70s and early 80s. Yeah. And one of the things they did was because it was all the thuggery, Les Boyd was getting a year off for elbowing people in the face. They cleaned the game up and they brought in a commission of independent people and successful businessmen, and they ran it like a business, and they got TV involved and they started expanding. And then, the game was flying, the Super League war started, and, players who were shit were getting $500,000. So that set us back probably 15 years. And then Vandy's has come in, 5 years ago, and things have, there was an independent commission that brought in, 10 years before he came in, and then he's skyrocketed further. And the AFL did this in the 80s as well. They were the VFL. They went national. Now the Australian Football League, not the Victorian Football League. And they have an independent commission. The NFL has an independent commission. We need people running the sport who are not, some bloke from Bradford or, the mate of the guy from Lee or whatever. We actually need independent people running it, and it needs to be unified. Rugby league in the UK is lots of little fiefdoms and people hate each other, and there's no unified. There's hardly anyone working together. And Anthony will know this with London, and this is one of the changes that's happening with London. There's people who run amateur clubs in London who didn't get on with the Broncos. So one of the reasons why the Broncos would get 5 men and a dog is because they never engage the community club in Hammersmith or whatever. So that kind of thing has to change.
The AB, last week on the pod, you mentioned different countries in the sporting realm that we could use as a model for performing when numbers, population, etc. don't allow.
Yeah.
You're a Labour man. Haven't Labour turned around electoral, or didn't people forget this, but they turned around electoral thoughts, didn't they, from the previous leaders era to then get elected 18 months later, 24 months later. So what lessons can be gleaned from that?
Things can change very fast, and the classic, there's no iron laws in politics is a line, that things change all the time, and it feels like in politics things are changing all the time. One thing that isn't changing in rugby league is that Australia always win the Ashes, but there's no reason why that should always be the case for reasons that we just think it. I mean, just going back to John's point about the broader strategy and the rest of it, in the book that I charted that period. And it was obvious.
He just references it all the time.
Sorry, yeah, but it's my
favorite. Say it to your wife.
Yeah, she's
as I said in the book, love.
No. She's like, "Am I in the acknowledgements?" I'm like, "Yes." Like, right, I'm not bothered with that. But there was a clear thought from the people running the sport, right, that if we match the Australians and beat them, right, we can become a national game and replace football as the national sport. That was now that seems mad now, because even if we'd have won an Ashes series, how much more popular would rugby league have come in this country if we'd won it? You got a bit of media headlines and a few people might more have engaged with the sport, but that era of having a 2005 cricket series or 2003 Rugby Union World Cup, that seems to have gone now for rugby league. It doesn't feel like one international series win is the answer to all our problems. Now that was what they thought. So, but in place of that, it's not really sure as a game. What are we working towards? How big do we think we can go, and how do we get there? We obviously can't match football. That was a dream of the 80s, and that's not going to happen now. But can we match rugby union? Can we be big in Merseyside? Is a strategy that we can be as the second sport in Liverpool now, because we saw what happened on Saturday. But none of this is either being discussed, communicated. None of the leadership ever say, right, we're going here because we want to grow here. Get on board with it. Like John says, the clubs have all got their interests, and their interests has got to my knowledge, has got nothing to do with the international game. They don't. It doesn't seem like they see international games a priority. There was no warm-up games for Sean Wayne. There probably won't be any next year.
No sessions.
So but this has been the case for 30 years or even now. So how do we get out of this? A clear plan for how big we can get and where we can do that. And to me, as a relative outsider, you don't see that. You don't see what's the purpose of the next 10 years, which is, I think, they desperately need something.
Chris, in 1988, Great Britain hadn't beaten Australia for 10 years. In 2026, it will be 20 years. It's currently 19 years. Sean Wayne has a game this week. If England manage to win, will it have the same impact as 1988? So I remember, and this is where I call you dad now, I remember your face when you woke up and I was on the sofa for some reason and you saw that Great Britain were ahead in Sydney in 1988. And your face was like, I can still picture it now. I was only a kid and I can picture it. Adrian Morley tells a similar story about his dad walking into the room where he and his brothers were sleeping and said, get up, Great Britain are winning, blah, blah, blah. Could a win next week inspire a generation like that?
It'd have to be an emphatic win. I think the problem is we need, and I'm sorry to use the soccer football analogy, we need investment on the scale that came into Manchester City or has come into Newcastle.
Or that came into Rugby League in 98, 99.
But, but that is what it needs again now. Because it doesn't, the general public, because you've got to sell it on television, first of all. You've got to see big crowds at the ground. You've got to have a development system. These are all the things throughout my lifetime we've been talking about. The problem is Super League's being extended next year. The television deal, will there be a television deal? On what sort of terms? I mean, as I understand it, I might be wrong because I don't follow the game as closely as I used to, but a lot of Super League clubs are paying part-time wages. This is Super League and there's going to be 2 more competing next year, competing for the pool of players. Yeah. So, and all my life, Rugby League's been dying. All die-hard Rugby League fans will say it's always been dying and yet it stumbles. And like you say, it's missed 2 golden opportunities. How do we change the mindset? To be quite honest, Lee, I don't think we ever will. I don't think we'll change that selfish mindset.
Okay. All right. So what I want to go into now, because this is turning into a 2-hour podcast when you put the interviews in. Last question around the round table, the virtual round table, is how it looks on the other side. So I said last week that it was a seismic week for the future of English Rugby League, British Rugby League, Northern Hemisphere Rugby League, World Rugby League, International Rugby League. Again, if you compared what happened on Saturday and watched New Zealand yesterday, it is very easy to picture England as 4th or 5th favourites for next year's World Cup. Very easy to picture that. Okay? Yes, there's been big crowds in England for the Ashes series, but that necessarily doesn't impact Australian society in any way, shape, or form. Okay? On the other side of the earth, John, attitudes to the Ashes, attitudes to England's potential for victory are at an all-time low. And they have, well, look, even in the 2000s, even in 88 in Sydney, they didn't turn up to watch Great Britain. So we're talking about something that's running through generations now. I called it a seismic week. England have failed. What will it mean for the world of rugby league, John?
England win?
No, England, the fact that they haven't won. So where are we now?
I think it's just confirmed all the opinions and prejudices that the people in Australia already had. I think it was interesting. I went on Andrew Voss's radio show on Friday with him and Greg Alexander, and we started going to talk about the Super League and expansion, and they had no idea that York and Toulouse were only getting half the funding. And then I explained that Toulouse also have to pay, near €1 million for the travel. And they were like incredulous that that's how things were run, but we just accept it over here.
You're just used to it, yeah.
Yeah, and it will get, as Chris said, it'll get worse next year because we'll have 14 teams, and then you're allowed 10 foreign players. So you've got players from the Q Cup. Essentially, Super League's becoming a Q Cup equivalent, so it's only going to get worse. So these things have to, they have to change at the top. So yeah, it's not a great look, and it's just going to confirm what Peter Vlandie said about the headed for the train crash. But things need to change drastically across the game. I mean, what the message that I got from some people, English people who've been following the game for probably 40 to 50 years, is that they actually hope for a whitewash because maybe it'll be like 82 and it'll spark some big reviews for the British game and some positive change.
I think the problem is international rugby league in the Northern Hemisphere has been murdered. It's over. I hope I'm wrong. I pray I'm wrong.
Well, France have never beaten Australia in my lifetime. They've gone from bad to worse to okay again to bad to worse. Ireland were quarter-finalists. First of all, they played in the Emerging Nations World Cup in 95, quarter-finalists in 2000, World Cup 2008, quarter-finalists.
There's about 250 people who play rugby league in Ireland. It's a shambles.
I know, and that's my whole point. So it was started and is now a shambles, right? Yeah. So they got to those quarterfinals, and the base that can be built from that, John, hasn't been built. Or if it has been built, it's not been built on strong foundations, so it's dipped. Scotland were World Cup quarterfinalists in 2013, from memory. Wales, semi-finalists in 1995, semi-finalists in 2000. In 2013, they couldn't win a game. The fingerprints are all over international disaster, John.
Yeah,
developmental disaster.
That's down to the RFL because it's their sphere of influence. The NRL sphere of influence is Australia, New Zealand, PNG, Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, isn't it? And the RFL had, I remember because I was at the press conference when it was announced, and it was after the 2013 World Cup, which was probably still the most successful financially World Cup I've ever had. And Nigel Wood cut development offices in London and Scotland, and I think Wales as well. And they've never come back. So yeah, unless you're putting money into development in those countries and you have a strategy, you have a plan to say, okay, we're going to set up a team in Wales, which they did and then went bust, or we're going to set up a team in London, we're going to protect them from relegation, or we're going to take games to Dublin, which Wigan and Warrington are going to do. But that's Wigan and Warrington doing it. That's got nothing to do with the RFL or the hierarchy. So there's no joined up thinking. There's no connection. There's nothing like that. And because of that, nothing ever works.
AB, what do you feel about an Australian coming in to run the Super League?
As in PVL? Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, I mean, it'd be fraught with danger, wouldn't it? Because for the clubs that are there, they'd be concerned about handing over too much power to, if you were going to look at it from that perspective, to PVL, because what is his end game? What does he actually care about the English game, or does he want it to make sure that there's players that can go to Perth? It's not clear, I think, exactly what they want. I think what the English fans want, and what a lot of people who do want the NRL to get involved, is that they want us to basically learn from a successful sport. Obviously, the NRL has has grown exponentially since COVID, really, and the way the game is played now. And we're going the other way. Their TV deal is literally going down every single year. And even though attendances are going up and IMG can say, metrics and the rest of it, the only thing that matters is how do we get more money into the game. And there doesn't seem to be a plan for that. PVL is looking like giving us one. If we do this deal together, if we put some money on the table, etc., there's a chance for you there. So I think there's going to be a divide, isn't there, like there was in '95, going back to the book, Super League, right? The mergers. There's going to be some who think that we stay as we are and protect the traditional clubs, and we don't want any Australian influence on it. And then there'll be the ones that think we should be expanding and going to 10 and developing London and more French clubs and the rest of it. And there's been that divide in rugby league for day one.
There's a bit of precedent. There's a bit of precedent only a couple of weeks ago. Didn't they not want Toulouse and Catalans in the Super League?
Yeah,
bloody foreigners. Bloody foreigners.
But they put restrictions on them to basically set them up to fail, right, John? I would say that's why Toulouse are there.
The hand was forced because Toulouse won the grand final. They were expecting Bradford to win the grand final or York, and then Toulouse won the grand final, and Toulouse accepted half money and to pay the travel. So they're like, well, we can't really not keep them in now because it will look so bad.
And it's like the opposite of like Melbourne Storm, right? Who were like heavily subsidised by the NRL. Is that right in the beginning?
Yeah, because about 40 million quid. 40 million quid roughly that New Zealand had pumped into the sport.
Is Toulouse part of the next 10 years? If they are, should we have them? It seems to me like it's just counting pennies and saying, right, how can we get another fixture in and make some money off that? But actually, Toulouse will pay for it all, and there's no club there and the rest of it. And PVL called it right. He was one of the first people to basically say it. He came over here, and 3 days in, he's like, that's a train wreck. If you think that two clubs can basically take half the money and you think that that's going to be sustainable, you're clearly wrong. But no one really picked up on that in the English game, did they?
The key point of that interview was the end was said, if they want our help, great. If they don't, we'll walk away. So they're not gonna unless there is unanimous support for the NRL and Vlandis, they're not going to bother. So on that basis,
there won't be, right?
No, and on that basis, you can't see 80% of the factions in the British game agreeing to it. So it's probably dead in the water.
Yeah,
we're going to be more positive at the weekend. On Friday, we're going to talk about a game of rugby league where Sean Wayne could potentially revitalise his troops and kickstart the renaissance of English rugby league and also the
Who's going to be Mike Gregory, 88.
That's right. Chris, before we end with contact details and whatnot, this bumper edition, you get the final word. You can talk about whatever you want. Within reason.
Yeah, in many ways, my enthusiasm wasn't lit up prior to this, but in the build-up, I think people will say he's a total pessimist. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But I think this time, unfortunately, we are looking at the end of International Rugby League in the Northern Hemisphere. The only thing that will save them is a thumping victory at the weekend that might have a flicker of interest in the general public, that might make children think, I fancy a go at that, might make... I think the administrators, nothing's going to change with that. And onwards and upwards. I mean,
or onwards or downwards.
Well, we're Salford fans. We're Salford
fans. Can't get worse. It can.
I remember Brian Snape coming in to save Salford in the 60s, and for people who have only started watching rugby league since Super League, I don't think there'll be that many of them. But Salford were a fairly successful team in the late 60s, 70s. Creative players, Steve Nash went on Great Britain tours, David Watkins, Maurice Richards, et al.
I did say within reason, you're not allowed to give the history of Salford.
No, I'm just saying, look where they are now.
Yeah.
Bradford Northern, were in the similar boat at that time.
They're flying. Look at them now. They're back in Super League. They've got a LED screen.
In the 60s, they were having collections, bucket collections round the ground for Bradford Northern. So never say never.
No, true.
No. I think what it'll inspire me to do is go and watch the next Leigh Miners Rangers match or the opening matches of the season, because it's half-hour walk from here, so it's good for you.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope everyone is okay now after listening to this debate. John, doesn't it look like genius that they picked Headingley for the third test now? Where can people get you, John?
You can get me on X or Johnny D Davidson, or on Patreon at Rugby League Hub.com long reads. It looks like the Kangaroos have gone off to Scotland for 2 days. That has been agreed if they won the Ashes. It'll be interesting to see. Do we see Dylan Edwards, Blake Briley, Mitchell Moses, Tommy Dearden all start? Why not?
Hopefully they don't get any spotted dick. Anthony, where can people get you?
Before I forget, I just was inspired by Chris, and I think maybe Man City could be the model for rugby league. Decades in the doldrums, and then boom.
So what English rugby league needs is an oil defined state to take over.
Well, couldn't I read this week that the World Cup Challenge has been off to Saudi Arabia? Maybe that'll be something like that, John. Anyway, we'll save that.
That'll be like New York Rugby League. That'll happen. Yeah.
Where can people get you, AB?
Milwaukee. Yeah, Labour_history for Labour Rugby League politics chat.
Is that on all social media channels?
On X, Insta, TikTok as well for the kids.
TikTok, yeah. And you can get Chris on the walk from his house to Leigh Miners Rangers.
In Bolton to Leigh Miners down the field.
His Man City top, yes.
Yeah, with me. No, I've got plenty of Salford tops.
All right.
Yeah.
We have to go. Take care, boys, and we'll see you later in the week, everyone listening.
See you now.